All right, so what I'm going to be doing today is going through how to make a major scale based on letter name alone. Okay, so we're going to be putting together two chains of notes and then adding accidentals, either sharps or flats, to make a major scale. So whenever we sing or whenever we want to write a major scale, we're looking for a pattern of notes that goes whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. A whole step, remember, sounds like happy birthday. So, doo doo. So, this C to D, doo doo, is a whole step. D to E would be a whole step. Doo doo. E to F is a half step naturally. That's why there's a circle there. So, I would sing doo doo and make it sound like the shark theme. Doo 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 doo. So, those four notes together whole step, half step. Then I need another series of four notes that follow that pattern whole step, half step. So I would go to the next alphabetical note, which is G. And guess what? F to G, already a whole step. So we're going to just chain this set of four letters together. G, A. Whoa, that's a half step. Sorry, I sang a half step. So we're going to just chain these two letters together, F to G, and G to A to B to C is a whole step, half step, just like C, D, E, and F were a whole step, half step. So together, these four notes and these four notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, make a full major scale. But if I were to take this chain and break it, I have two individual series of four notes in alphabetical order. So today we're going to be focusing on different groupings of four notes that can make just the whole step, half step pattern. Okay, so I already know that C, D, E, and F are naturally occurring whole step, half steps. And I also know that G, A, B, and C are naturally occurring whole step, half steps. So we're not going to worry about this chain in the middle. We're just going to try to find four notes at a time that make whole step, half step. So one of those sets of four notes would be D, E, F, G. Now, if I were to take this circle and put it around E and F, I already can see that it's not the correct pattern because notice that half step is at the end of the series of whole step, half steps. So I need to make this D, E, F, G fit the pattern where the half step is at the end. So what do I need to do? Well, I need to add something known as an accidental. You can add in sharps or flats to make a whole step or a half step, depending on where you're at. So I already know from this example here that D to E is already a whole step. So I'm going to label D to E as a whole step. And I already know because of the circle that E to F is a half step, but we don't want a half step there. We want a whole step. So I could take a sharp and I could put it here on the E, except for when I alter this note, it alters the relationship from D to E sharp and makes it not a whole step anymore. If I put a flat there, it makes it a half step. So I don't want to mess with my E because it's already going to affect the note that comes before. So instead, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to take this note and put it next to my F, or take this sharp, I should say, and put it next to my F, and that changes my E to F sharp, or sorry, my E to F relationship from a whole step. I'm going to take it and it's going to change the relationship from E to F, from E to F half step to E to F sharp whole step. Also, E to F sharp does not fit in my little ring here anymore because that only circles naturally occurring half steps. Well, F is no longer F natural, it's F sharp. So that is a F sharp whole step. Interestingly enough, we've solved the problem of making a half step at the end because F sharp to G is already a half step. So if I want four notes beginning on D that follow the whole step, half step pattern, all I need to do is add a sharp to the F, and I've made that pattern. If I continue on down If I continue on down the alphabet, so I had D, E, F, G. Now I'm going to start with E, F, G, A. I already know that E to F is going to need some treatment here. If I use the pattern from before, I know that if I add a sharp to if I add a sharp to F, that E to F is a whole step. Okay, so we're good to go there. If I add a sharp to F, though, I already know that that makes this a half step. So F sharp to G is a half step, so I need to add a sharp to G to make F sharp to G sharp a whole step. And if I do that, G sharp to A becomes a half step. It was a whole step if it was just G to A. So now I have E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A. Okay? So if I continue to add to this idea, I have the next letter in the alphabet, F, G, A, B. Okay, well, here's the thing. F to G already is a whole step. We already know that from up here. G to A is a whole step. We know that from here. A to B is a whole step, and we know that from here. So what I would need to do is leave F, G, and A alone and add what we call a flat to B, and that makes B no longer, or A to B no longer a whole step, but a half step. So I'm going to bring this down and make it a flat. Another thing you could do, so F, G, A, B flat. Another thing you could do, if you wanted to start on an F but not make it a flat scale, so there's my F, so there's my F tetrachord without, so there's my F tetrachord with the flat to make it a full whole step, half step pattern. But if I wanted it to be a sharp scale, I could make F sharp and, but if I wanted to not make it a flat scale and instead have sharps instead of flats, I could pull this F up to sharp. We know from the E, F, G example that F sharp and G sharp have to be all sharp. We also know that G sharp to A is half step, so I need to make A sharp. When I make A sharp, B is naturally a half step with A sharp. So if I start on F sharp, B becomes the note that does not get a sharp. Okay? And then we get to G. G is already a naturally occurring whole step, half step pattern. So I don't need to do anything with that there. When I start on A, I already know that A to B is a whole step. B to C is a half step, so I need to change something to make it into a whole step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my sharp, and I'm going to make B sharp. So A to B sharp is a whole step. B sharp to C, A to B is a whole step. So A to B already we know is a whole step. B to C is a half step. I don't want to mess with the B because that'll mess with the A, so we need to make C a sharp note. That turns B to C into a whole step. And then when I have C sharp to D, that's already a naturally occurring half step, so therefore my new tetrachord is A, B, C sharp, D. Now pause. If I were looking back here on this part of my tetrachord, G to A is a whole step. So if I wanted a full scale on D, I would just do D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. All right, so now I have A, I'm going to do a tetrachord or a 4-note string on B. So B, C, D, E. I already know that B to C is going to be a problem because of the ABC tetrachord. So I need to make B to C sharp my whole step. Otherwise, it's a half step. When I make C sharp and go to D, it creates a half step. So I need another sharp if I want to make a whole step there, which I do. D sharp to E is already a half step. So whenever I start on B, I need to have B, C sharp, D sharp, E. Okay. Now, I borrowed a sharp earlier. I need to put it back. There we go. Now, if I start my scale on an E, I know that A to B is already a whole step, so there's my chain in the middle. If I want to make a scale on E, I would need 4 sharps, E to F sharp to G sharp, A to B, B to C sharp to D, D sharp to E. And finally, I'm going to continue on with F sharp, okay, not F natural. So if I start with an F sharp, I know that I need a sharp on G to make it a whole step. If I have a sharp on G, I need to keep it going with a sharp on A to create a whole step. And I know that A to B sharp is a half step. So a scale beginning on so I already know, so after I get done with B, I already know how to create 4 notes on C because it's there, C, D, E, F. I already know how to do D, D, E, F sharp, G. I know how to get an E. So these are all of the tetrachords that require sharps to make a whole step, half step. So if I start on B, I need a C sharp and a D sharp to make B, C sharp, D sharp, E. That is a whole step, half step pattern. Then my next alphabetical starting point is C, so from B to C. C, D, E, F is already a naturally occurring whole step, half step string. D, E, F sharp, G is my next one in order. Then E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Then F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. Then G, A, B, C. And then A, B, C sharp, D. One set of 4 notes that I did not talk about is that if I start on C, but put a sharp on C, this is not an unheard of thing to do. But this is also way trickier looking than it actually is. If all of my notes here, C, D, E, F, make a whole step, half step pattern with no sharps, then in order to start on C sharp and make a whole step, half step pattern, I would need to make all of the notes in that pattern sharp. Okay, so C, D, E, F, and C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp are the same set of patterns, just this is starting on a C sharp, this is starting on a C. So those are all of the possible sets of notes if I'm looking at sharps.